there are times where sometimes we will feel the presence of somebody in the room. We've had, things fly off walls while we were filming, bizarre moments where clearly there
Mm.
was some presence that didn't feel like my guide, but felt like a loved one. But most of the time, it's very much a process of I don't even know what the person looked like that I'm talking about. I oftentimes know a lot less than people would even think because I'm just simply interpreting what's coming through this guide.
Gabrielle Bernstein, a role model for spiritual seekers. So I'm really excited to just dive in with you. I love your presence. I love your energy.
Thank
You're
you.
doing a beautiful service in a very public way, which I really want to acknowledge and admire. And I love talking to folks who have access to the other side in whatever form that might be. I also do on this show talk a lot about how I believe we all have our own ability to connect in whatever form that comes for us. And that's kind of where I want to start is when did you know that
Sure.
you had this relationship to a realm beyond your physical sight?
Well, to answer that question, for me, I think it started primarily when I was 10 years old. I had a premonition of my grandmother's death, and this came to me while I was asleep. I basically just kind of woke up and had this knowingness that she was going to transition. And at the time, it felt like a memory that hadn't happened yet. It was really confusing. And it would really kind of later set the stage for the intuitive experiences I would have. But I think in some ways, just being different inherently. I grew up as an only child. I had a big imagination. I was a very anti-structural person. I didn't really abide by traditional boundaries even as a young person. And so I think that created kind of fertile soil for an ability to develop for me around 10 years old.
Yeah. Was it scary for you when you were 10 and you knew this was happening?
It's more scary when other people tell you that what you're experiencing is strange.
Yeah.
And that's for me what I found. And I'm sure you can relate. When we have these experiences, they're natural. People use the word supernatural, paranormal. I think they're natural and normal
Yeah.
until people say otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was lucky. I grew up with a real spiritual home. In this sense, I was lucky. In some ways, I wasn't. But I was brought up in an environment where spirituality was the norm, where my mom would leave the room to go meditate. So having a sensation of a presence of spirit around me was something I was really excited about and thought was cool at the time.
Yes.
And so that was a blessing for me because it was very present. Uh, and as I have seen for myself, the more healing I have undergone and the more clear a vessel I have become, the more the easier it is for me to channel. It's just even most recently in the last like 4 or 5 months, it's like
Wow.
pouring through.
Yeah.
Whereas folks like yourself, I think it's just this sort of innate ability that's been there and just been so present.
I think it's something definitely to be refined. And it's, as you said earlier, something we all can tap into. We all have an intuition, an inner tuition or inner knowledge. And how we receive that might be a little different, but we all have the ability to tap in. And so I think using it in a practical sense, we all get first impressions when we shake someone's hand. We look to our animals and they give us the look, whether they have to go potty or whether they have to go, get food or water. You can kind of see examples where intuition plays into our day-to-day lives, and people don't even call it intuition. It's just a form of discernment, and I think can be a lot less woo-woo than people think.
A lot less woo-woo, and it's really in the zeitgeist right now. People are so open and willing to have these kinds of conversations and in many ways want them and seek them. And I see a girlfriend of mine who's like a big business person, right? I saw her at like a women's conference. She's like, "I want to be a medium." And I was like, "You are, you have the ability and your desire to connect in that way is everything." And so
Sure.
how do you feel about that from the standpoint of this desire for more people to open up to lift the veil? Is that a good thing? Is that make you nervous? What do you think about that?
I think that intention is everything, and I think with anything, caution is valuable. It's important to not get lost in the sauce. I think, like any tool, things can be
Mm,
used for positive or destructive purposes. And certainly, when we talk about tools of discernment or where you can get information. Certainly, there's people who fall on both sides of the curtain there. But I would say, just largely imploring people to implement intuition in their lives in tangible ways is really where I would start. Before I would read for others, I would encourage people to have a coherent understanding of their own inner worlds and ensure that their life reflects discernment. uh, and that's kind of in essence where it comes into walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And something that I hope more people can get turned on to and develop. And I'm very encouraging. I think we all have that innate intuition.
That was really well said. Like
Thanks.
any tool, like any tool, it can be used wisely or it can be used wrongly. So that was really beautiful. And I think that there are instances I see with folks that they start to feel the mystical and they start to feel the veil lift and they can connect. And then they kind of like just trying to use these relationships with spirit for magic tricks. And that's a bunch of bullshit. And so I want to call that out right now that this is like anything else, a tool to be used for good.
Yeah.
And yes, it can always benefit us to have that kind of connection, but to stay in alignment with what our intentions are is really a beautiful, beautiful way to describe that and to define that. Now, you identify as a clairvoyant. Now, would you define for the listeners the clairs so we can
Sure.
kind of get a sense of the different clairs?
Well, I feel like every year adding more and more clairs, but
Is
you
that
have
right?
clairsentience, claircog, keep coming with all these senses. But starting with clairvoyance, clairvoyance being clear sight, it derives from a French word that translates to just that. And it really, in essence, kind of speaks to the strong mental impressions that a person can receive, and that being the primary modality that they receive intuitive info. A lot of people think clairvoyance is generally like seeing people walking around or seeing people in your bed. While that might be the experience for some, it's definitely not that way for me. It's really a very strong internal active imagination, as Carl Jung coined it. But there's so many different aspects to the clairs. You have clairaudience, which is clear hearing, clairsentience, clear knowing, clear feeling. And in essence, any sense that you perceive the outer world can be free game for the inner world to communicate, and kind of act as a canvas to paint their story onto. And that's really what the body is to me as a medium.
So you would say that maybe somebody that might be more imaginative might lean clairvoyant? Could that be possible?
Sometimes, I think of this just distinguishment that was made in anthropology of thick boundaried people and thin boundaried people. And study and research has shown that most people kind of tend to fall into one category or the other. Generally, the thin boundaried people are going to be creative, fluid, both generally in their beliefs and lifestyles. And then you have really thick boundary people who, just as they don't let things out, they often don't let things in. And those types of people make great accountants, great money people, great people who are more on the quantifiable side versus the qualitative side of things. Creativity, art, feeling, love, emotion, subjectivity, those are all qualitative versus quantitative. So figuring out where you fall in that realm is a good starting place to figure out how intuition might speak to you.
That's a great way to put it. I never thought about thick boundaried people. Yeah. Yeah, it's really and it makes sense because the more open and receptive you are, the more you say, "Yes, I'm ready to receive."
And there
Now
are some risks with that. I don't mean to interrupt, but there is
totally.
certain personality traits. There's something to be said about having boundaries of that they protect us, on some large level. And so I think why you see a lot of people drawn into the mystical realm, and unfortunately, sometimes people get lost in the sauce, as we say,
Yeah.
because it requires a certain degree of anti-structure, a type of personality that's willing to take risk, to kind of swim in the waters that most people would drown in. And that's something that sometimes results in people, having negative experiences. So to your friend's point earlier about wanting to become a medium, I know you mentioned this person was like a business person. My encouragement for anyone listening would be to consider why you want to be a medium and see what the answer is for one, and then secondarily how you can implement that answer into your own life versus focusing on others. And if you see success there, then we can talk.
Beautiful. Yeah, because I think that sometimes people get a little confused about the why. Also, I think that you mentioned boundaries. When you are a channel to receive, you also want to make sure that while you may be thin boundaried, that you have clear, uh, defined boundaries around the type of spirit you're open or willing to connect to, because you don't want to be a sponge for whatever's going on out there. I like to sort of use the metaphor, I'm throwing a party and I'm not just going to open the door and let whoever the hell wants to come in, come in.
Yes,
I'm going to have a guest list.
I love
I have
that.
a very clear guest list. So, how do you create those spiritual boundaries for yourself? Because you've got a lot of people, a lot of energy, a lot of dead people, a lot of people all around you. What's your boundaries? How do you do it?
I would say that my boundaries I find are more applicable to the living than the departed.
Yeah.
Because I have such a strong relationship with my spirituality, with my guides, I really feel a sense of innate protection, a sense of distinguishment that gets made there that's even beyond me. Now, when it comes to living, breathing human beings, that's a whole other story. And that can be where, sometimes I do deal with being a people pleaser, having issues with boundaries, wanting to say yes to everything. And that's where I find it's almost most necessary. In the nature of being a medium, you're dealing with grieving people, you're dealing with an inherent desperation. And I tell people that grief is very self-centered. When people are grieving, it feels like the world has swallowed them up, opened up, and taken them down. And when you're in that experience, it is just so intense and immersive. And so it really speaks to the value of boundaries. And for me, having alone time is one of the biggest ways I do that.
Oh, nice. Is that how you would replenish
Yeah.
yourself?
Oh,
Yeah.
by far.
Yeah.
But then you find that interesting thing that happens when you spend too much time alone and you don't work, information very often starts kind of backing up or coming through. So it's a
Mm.
balance of kind of releasing the pressure, letting it build, releasing the pressure, and this dance between structure and anti-structure.
You sound so clean in the work. I just wanted to reflect that to you. Really,
Thank you.
really cool. I think it's really valuable for the listener right now to see the integrity, right? To see someone who, okay, and you're also working very publicly with television and celebrity, and when people think of a medium, they might say, oh, Tyler Henry, you know what I mean? So it's like there's a handful of folks out there that really, that really have that household name. And so with that obviously has come a tremendous amount of responsibility. And I'm really proud of you as your new friend to
Yes.
just reflect back to you that it's really clean and it's really clear. And I think that the people I'm drawn to most in our space, in the spiritual space, oftentimes are the mediums, because and my listeners will know that because I'm always talking to the mediums and the psychics and the those who identify in this way, because the ones who have the greatest impact are those who have the clearest boundaries and the clearest channel to receive. And so it's quite beautiful to witness that in you. And I want to reflect that back to you.
That
Yeah.
really means the world. It's really a process for me. It's extremely humbling, and it's been humbling since I was a child, having these experiences and really all the questions that they present. I think of people often coming to mediums to find answers. I find, despite some of the answers that might come forward, it presents a million questions, and that can be so humbling in the perspective it reminds one of constantly. And so I encourage mediums out there to be humble, to be taken aback by the wonder of what the work represents, and never lose
Yeah.
sight of that, never become jaded or, you know,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's
Be
important.
humbled by it.
Yes.
What's your sign that you're tuned in? For me, I don't know if you have it, but for me, it's like my left hand goes numb, which is happening right now, and
Wow.
this hand often will go up. Um, and I'll start speaking quickly. I think I'm clairvoyant and clairsentient. Um, like I'll see like, oh, there's a chair, and then, but then I'll also have really strong knowing, and I can speak really authority with a lot of authority about things
Yeah.
when it's coming through. Do you have like a sign that spirit is present?
Generally, I'll just kind of get the chills, which kind of seems like
Yeah.
a generic answer, but yeah, usually start getting them on the arms, they'll happen on the legs. It oftentimes will start at the upper spine and kind of work its way down. And in researching Kundalini, I find that to be quite interesting as I'm uninitiated in that realm, but there does seem to be some relationship between a very tangible energy that has yet to be kind of quantified.
Totally. Yeah, I followed the Kundalini path for many years, and I think it was so much of it was that it did feel like it was just opening the gate to that channel. And so yeah, so like right now, I might feel the presence of that and it's for me what it feels like and what I can hear right now is like, oh, this is just guides just being like, we're with you. We like him. His energy's so warm and connected. And they just want to be in that energy. That's kind of what I'm hearing in this moment. It's funny. I heard my cat meowing too. And usually she leaves me alone when I'm in here, but she's like, meow, meow, meow. She feels it too. And so, yeah, it just feels good is sort of what they're saying. Right.
More
Um,
the merrier.
the more
Well,
the merrier, yeah, and that's the other thing that likes to happen in these big talks when I'm speaking with those who can have those kinds of guides so close, is to sort of just, like, invite that conversation to be whatever it needs to be, and for me, when I was on stage last week and normally I would just say what I'm hearing or I'm sensing, or I'll just channel for people without saying it, and I found myself kind of being like, "Well," my late mentor Louise Hay came through, and I was at a Hay House conference. It was just like, "Louise is here, she's telling you this, blah, 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 blah." And that was cool, and I liked that, but I also have found that, like, I really appreciate just sort of being the interpreter
sure.
and not giving because I think people really, when they hear like, "Oh, my grandmother gave this to me," or whatever, it's like it's empowering. It's also nice to just let it be yours, like, whatever it is you need to hear, and you can interpret it on your own.
Absolutely. To be a conduit for that is so meaningful, and it's truly a privilege and one that neither of us take lightly, and I think that's reflected in the work.
Mm. You connect with guides, so your guides, but and do you find that you're commonly guided to other people's guides or to deceased family members, or at times is that the same thing for them?
It's definitely a bit of a mixture, and it all kind of
Yeah.
gets convoluted when we talk about eternity and eternal beings, of which I think we are. But I find that for me, I work with my primary guide, and that guide seems to receive information and deliver it, often about or through other people.
Oh, cool. So you have one guide primarily there giving you messages from other guides to give to the person.
Very often,
So you don't
yes.
actually have to deal with all the personalities.
That's the thing. There are times where sometimes we will feel the presence of somebody in the room. We've had, things fly off walls while we were filming, bizarre moments where clearly there
Mm.
was some presence that didn't feel like my guide, but felt like a loved one. But most of the time, it's very much a process of I don't even know what the person looked like that I'm talking about. I oftentimes know a lot less than people would even think because I'm just simply interpreting what's coming through this guide. So it's kind of like they act as an interpreter on the other side, and I act as an interpreter on this side, and we kind of meet in the middle.
What a nice way. What a nice way. I think that I've felt like I've been connecting to people's, so I feel like I sense that I connect to like a high level guide, the guides that are in the pursuit of helping people elevate the work that they're here to bring forth on behalf of the light.
That's amazing. That's a good place to be.
Yeah. So it's like sometimes a grandmother will show up or, a little message here and there,
Sure.
but it's not really that. It's more just it feels like this sort of like panel of guides that are very heightened in their purpose, which is to elevate humanity.
I love that.
Period.
That's an amazing intention that we all can take more of.
Yeah. Yeah, and increase the light.
Absolutely. That's what
Increase
it's
the
all
light.
about. So fascinating across all world religions, spiritualities, light seems to be a fundamental. And there's something about that could be universal.
Mhm. Do you feel like the do you have a sense for yourself of what you said earlier, something about we're all light beings. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but it was something about that sort of that we're human, there's spirit. What's your thesis around the human condition and the spiritual realm and where it starts and stops? And I just want to hear from you what you know to be true for you.
I mean, I would say just my general mission statement is that we are all really here to kindle a light in the darkness of humanity.
Mm,
And whatever that looks like to us is going to be very individual. But I think, just as I say, our interests are indications of our calling. We all can do better and take the opportunity within the story we're born into to make the world a better place. And so our purpose doesn't have to necessarily be to be super successful in career, and purpose can be multifaceted, but there's something to be said about this idea that we all have the power to grow where we are planted and to truly be able to make a difference. And so that for me seems to indicate that there's some larger mission, a reason we're here, and a reflection process that seems to happen on the other side. And that's really given me a different perspective on even how I navigate my life.
A reflection on the other side, so that when we're no longer in the physical form, you think that we are reflecting.
I do. I think that there's a deep introspective process that is ironically almost like when a star is a supernova. It almost has to be, destroyed before there's an expansion. There's an inward process to reach an outer expression of higher being. And so when we talk about the life review process, near-death experiences generally being ones that reflect back. We also see within hospice, people who are elderly dying, whether they're old or not. And very often people seem when they're going through illness to go through a life review while they're still here. People pick up the phone and want to call relatives they haven't talked to in decades.
Mm,
They find themselves kind of wanting to wrap things up. And that is just a natural process akin to birth to me.
mm.
It just happens to be happening on the tail end of life.
Are you writing a book right now? I think you're writing a book right now.
Yeah, working on a third one right now. Look at that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's really
Well,
the
so
goal.
what happened for me is I started typing, right? Like
Yeah.
is it, and then my
Symbolic.
hands started going like that, and I was like, he's working on a book. And so what is it? Is it sort of a little bit pushing the envelope a little bit more with this kind of conversation of like that life review and yeah,
Yeah, definitely. And kind of more of the mechanisms that mediums don't generally talk about. So it's nice to be able to have these conversations with you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like yeah, okay. Um, and for me, yeah, I feel like there's this is sort of where like those heightened like purpose driven guides might come through for me, right? Um, are you open to hearing what
Oh,
that's
of
saying?
course.
Okay.
Always. Absolutely.
And it's nice for me because practice. Um, but I think that they're like I'm seeing clapping hands and like applauding and just really saying, that you've been they're saying use your platform. You know that, but use your platform to sort of remind people of their abilities to use this service for good. And for again, like the healing of humanity, which we were just talking about, but that there's going to be something that's like a kernel within the book that just like cracks people open to this just like yeah it's a cracking open but it's also just like this simplicity and they're saying remember that while you're speaking on behalf of the divine it's grounding it in the human form and which is what your gift is truly even being called to work with celebrity or whatever it's democratizing this message right so use your gift and the truth pierces through they're very excited about this book really excited about what's the title of it or you don't want to
No,
share
we're in kind of a working stage right now with it, but the meat and potatoes of it is established. So it's
when's it
on
out
probably in the next probably right even for 2 years. But hey, you
two
tell me.
years okay 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 I'm seeing faster might come out
Okay,
sooner
I like
okay
that. I like that. My agent's going to be very happy about this
your
news.
agent's going to love me. Yes. No, I think it's actually just going to come through really quickly. And I think they're saying go away in a corner, be alone. And then I see just like, it's all coming through really quickly. And it's timely. There's like a timely essence to it. And they're saying, don't be afraid to tell the things that scare you to say.
That. And that's good advice. We all can benefit from that, but specifically, I feel that this is really timely that we're even having this exchange. And I also will say, I think it speaks to the synchronistic nature of psychic messages. People I think under focus or underrepresent the fact that a message, when received at the right time, can act as a catalyst in a person's life. No matter how specific or non-specific, when someone hears something that affirms archetypally where they're at their time in life, that can have great value. So I
Oh,
really,
just such good value. Some of the messages that I've received from mediums have just given me so much peace.
yes,
And even if it wasn't direction, it was just sort of a settled sensation.
yes.
And that allowed me to just don't let whatever was naturally going to unfold. And I know that also that their messages were divinely guided to me at that time.
Yes. And
because
what
that
a
was the
feeling too, to have
yeah,
that union and
yeah,
nexus.
yeah. It's really, really quite special. Do you have someone that reads for you? Or do you
Less so. I'm actually someone who prefers not to know, just generally as about most things when it comes to certain trajectories of the future. I like to kind of just carve out those paths in my own right. But I find that for me, if anything, when I'm feeling any sense of pangs of grief, for example, I have certain ways that I'm able to kind of process that while still
mm,
fully recognizing and honoring that physical absence and the fact that no matter how spiritually aware or you are or what you believe, pain hurts. Loss is difficult. And that's something that I think, spiritual people need to remember not to feel guilt for feeling grief. It is
oh
natural.
God, yeah.
And I think sometimes people really do put themselves, unfortunately, a bit of an elevated state where they think, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I'm
Mm,
medium, and I tell people, no, loss sucks.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Are you able to channel for yourself?
Sometimes I find more in life or death situations. So in the past, I've had a couple close calls with either physical health or near death experiences, a couple now. But those in those situations, at least, it's kind of overrided my logic and reason. So the real issue why I find I can't read myself typically is because of implicit bias, and
Yeah.
it's I prefer to not know what I'm walking into or even what someone is expecting because when you have expectation, you have disappointment in mind, and
Yeah.
really helps to put that to the side to be a clear vessel.
I like that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I don't really try to channel for myself, you
Yeah.
know. If
Yeah.
I'm working on a book or a creative project I'm inviting in, it's not for myself, it's for others.
We've got
Uh,
a deadline. Come on, honey. We're
yeah,
lock and load.
bring it in, honey.
I'm
That's
ready.
right. Yeah. And because it's a nice collaborative process. It is
It is.
part of the process. I love looking back on my books and saying, who wrote that?
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
did that come from? That was so cool. I don't remember writing that.
Yes.
And feeling like it's such a collaboration. Yeah.
Yeah, I know
Eh,
group projects always sucked in school, but then you grow up and you get connected to your spirit guides and you realize, hey, it can work out.
Groups can be great when we're
It
all
can.
in this together. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also feel like there's value in just letting our children kind of remember and keep the veil so thin as long as possible. I've got this 5-year-old and we talk to his angels every night and
Oh,
he says, are they sparks of light? And I said, yeah, they're coming in as sparks and he'll say, like, I can't see them. I'm like, can you feel them? And we just have really, really beautiful dialogues about the angels and the guides. And the angels, he doesn't like to have stories like dreams. He calls them stories. I'll say,
oh,
thank you, angels, for helping Ollie have only loving stories tonight. And he really, it's the faith is strong in him.
absolutely.
And it's just I encourage my listeners now to keep that dialogue going with their kids if they feel safe and comfortable to do so.
Absolutely. And kids being so open and impressionable, I think there's real value in being able to encourage them to develop that relationship early on and not be afraid of that
Mm,
and empower them that, in the event that they come across energy that's undesirable, be it living or departed, how to handle
mm.
it, how to have the tools to defend oneself.
And what would be a tool to defend oneself as we kind of wrap up? I like to give some tools as we let people go with this big conversation.
Yeah. So, I think belief is a tool. And I think of it as something that can almost breathe momentum. And there's something to be said about when we reclaim our space, when people often deal with, situations where they wake up in the middle of the night frightened or they feel a presence that they don't want. It makes people feel insecure. And I
Mm,
encourage people to take back their security through affirmation, through expression, through marking your metaphysical territory, but having the confidence to kind of use belief, use faith to develop a trust, an innate
mm.
trust in your ability to handle situations that might be unpredictable, to deal with things that might be frightening, and to be a stable force among instability. And if you can really truly integrate that, you'll find that you're not frightened by the unpredictable or the unseen.
I could
And
see that in you when you were saying, well, yeah, I've got boundaries, but my guys are kind of got my back. And like, I'm not, it's just really a strong belief in knowing that you're protected.
Yeah, and, and people sometimes will be like, "Well, how could that be?" But I truly never questioned it. They've never given me a reason to question it, and that's allowed for a knowing beyond belief. And I
Yeah.
encourage people, however they do it, to try to get there in their life.
Yeah. Developing that knowing beyond belief. Yes, man. That
That's a
is,
big talk.
that's a big talk, baby. Big talk only. I'd love to have you back on because you're super cool. If there's ever when that next book is out, I want to shout it from the rooftops. What book of yours would you recommend? You have two other books now. So which one do you think we would recommend to people here?
Because I wrote my first one when I was 19, like the world's shortest memoir ever. I just finished
Right.
puberty. I would say the second book's a little better. Here and Hereafter really kind of answers a lot of the questions and really tries to kind of talk about how we can prevent future regret. And that's really what it's all about. So,
Wow. Yeah. Beautiful.
yes.
And what's up next for you other than the book that you're writing?
Well, got 32 city tour across the US, and that's
No
so many
way.
to be able to travel. We got 2,000, 5,000 people. It really varies. And it's so interesting to see that process live and unedited. There's something about it
Yeah.
that you can take away that's different than even from television. So if you're interested in the work, if you've experienced a loss and you're just curious to kind of see, how it works, it's really beautiful to be able to come together as a group through something that's so isolating like grief and
Yeah.
come out, smiling and laughing. And sometimes people even make friends. So I
Yeah.
encourage people
So
to,
you're reading the rooms. You're reading the rooms. Yeah.
yes, reading the room quite literally. And tickets are actually available on my website. That's
Yeah.
tylerhenrymedium.com. You can check it out.
I really encourage people to go see you on the road. It would be your presence here is just so beautiful and clear, and I just appreciate you and the service that you're bringing forth, and you're so young.
Oh,
So-
shucks. Clock's ticking. I'm 28. So, but I have to commend you for your work. You
I could be
truly,
your mom, baby.
you know what? You look like my sister, truly.
Well,
You're
I'm
younger than,
44, and
there's no way.
your 28-year-old is
You're immortal. No wonder you're magical. You're immortality. I love it.
Well, 28, I am so moved by you. Good for you for having such clear boundaries and strength at this young age. And you're in your Saturn return, baby. Wow.
Oh, I know, right? That's what I
Strap
thought.
on your seatbelt.
That's how it
Yes.
feels. We're just
Yes.
getting started. And I'm so
Yeah.
excited for all you do. Please stay in touch. I'm so thrilled to be able to watch your progress, and you're really making a
Yeah.
difference. So thank you
Let's
for having
let's
me on.
we'll hang when I'm in LA, or if you're in New York,
Yes.
I'll come
Oh,
see
we'll
you
make it
live in
happen.
New York.
Yes, or
Yeah.
Connecticut.
Oh, are you going to be speaking in Connecticut soon?
I'm all over. Yes, absolutely. We'll get you the link, and I would love to give you some tickets if you're
Yeah,
around.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I want to come. Bring my
Well,
crew.
amazing. Uh,
Thank you, my love. Everybody go to tylerhenrymedium.com, get your butt in a seat. And we appreciate you for helping those who are grieving and for all the work that you do. Thank
like,
you.
thank you so much.
If you like this video and you want to get more Gabby, check out the next one right over here.